National Consumer Agency is warning consumers to be careful when buying second-hand cars after they secured their second conviction in a month for a sale of a clocked car. A Dublin car trader was convicted at the District Court of a breach of the Consumer Protection Act. John Shine is Director of Commercial Practices at the NCA and he joins us now. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Philip.
Give us an outline of this latest prosecution and what the penalty is.
Well, in the case before the court today, a consumer purchased a car in June 2011. It subsequently came to his attention that there was a discrepancy in the odometer reading. He made a complaint to the agency, and then following an investigation by the agency, we initiated a prosecution. So it came before the Dublin District Court this morning. And the Nigel Brophy, trading at Service Point Autos on the Green Hills Road, was convicted, and we also secured a compensation order for the consumer.
And what's the sanction that he faces?
Well, the trader has been convicted of a breach of the Consumer Protection Act. And then on the basis of the conviction, the agency secured a compensation order of €3,500 for the consumer.
But what does his conviction carry? A slap on the wrist or a fine?
Well, I mean, a conviction is a conviction, so I think any reputable business, wouldn't welcome a conviction on their record.
Mm-hmm. Nothing to stop him from changing the name of the business and opening up tomorrow as something else, is
Well,
there?
I mean, what the law allows us to do is to pursue either an individual or a business. So that's what we have done. We've secured a conviction through the courts.
There was a figure produced at the beginning of this year by, admittedly, a commercial organisation that does have a vested interest in encouraging people to check whether their cars have been clocked or not. But it suggested that 11% of the national fleet could be clocked in this country. In that context, your two convictions in the last month is really only scratching the surface of this problem, isn't it?
Well, firstly, I mean, we have two convictions in the last month. We have another two cases before the court, and we have a number of further investigations well progressed. In terms of the amount of clocking that's out there, I mean, all we can go on is the number of complaints we receive. And the number is relatively stable over the last number of years at about 60 to 80 complaints to the agency. But any consumers out there who have a concern that their car might be clocked, we would certainly encourage them to get in contact with the agency.
Your hands are tied. People do have to come to you and alert you before you can take action.
Yes, they do. But the more important thing I would say...
Let me just... follow through on that point. The problem would seem to be, according to this organisation, Cartell, and its survey of 50,000 vehicles, is that the rate of clocking in Ireland is double that of what it is in the UK. This problem is rampant.
Well, we don't have any evidence to suggest that's the case. As I say, all we can go on is the number of complaints we receive, which is relatively stable over the last number of years. But the most important point I would make is it's an issue of prevention and the importance of consumers to take some basic precautions to ensure that they don't encounter these difficulties.
And we'll come to those in a moment, but when you say you don't have any evidence to suggest that those figures are correct, is that because you haven't gone and sought the evidence, you haven't gone and asked the question in the same way that Cartell did?
Well, as I say, we go on the complaints we receive, and the number of complaints we
60.
receive is stable over the last number of years.
They sampled 50,000 vehicles, so you would acknowledge that theirs is perhaps statistically more representative.
Well, look, I really can't comment, Philip, on their research and on the basis on which they have done it. But just suffice to say that if individuals out there have any concerns in relation to the fact that their cars may be clocked, we would encourage them to get in contact with the agency.
How do you tell if a car has been clocked?
Well, there's a number of private sector providers who will actually provide a checking service to any individual, and they're that's easily accessible on the internet. But the main thing we would do is we would ask consumers to look for assurances from the garage that the mileage actually on the odometer is correct, and to ask some basic questions, of the car salesman. And we've lots of advice available on our website. And if they're not satisfied with responses that they're getting, to consider walking away from the deal. Also, they should ensure that they get all of the relevant documentation in relation to the car, that they check that documentation before they actually do the deal. And they
check
should
it
also,
for what, John?
Sorry?
Check it for what?
Check it for discrepancies. Many people actually end up buying cars without actually having checked the service record. So look for a service record for the vehicle, check that there are no inconsistencies in that service record, and if the service record isn't available, we'll then consider walking away.
Okay. Thank you very much, John Shine.